My name is Leah, and I will be presenting research on the psychopathic mind. When most people think of psychopaths, they think of violent serial killers like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy. However, not all psychopaths are criminals, and not all are even violent. This is exemplified in the case of James Fallon, a neuroscientist who discovered that his own brain was like that of other psychopaths, and that he had many psychopathic characteristics. He was later diagnosed with psychopathy. With this in mind, it is also important to know that psychopathy and criminality are closely related. Psychopaths represent less than 1% of the general population, but 20% of the prison population. They are responsible for over half of all violent crimes. And compared to non-psychopaths, they are 20 to 25 times more likely to be in prison, 2.5 times more likely to be conditionally released early, usually because of their charm and their ability to get what they want. And as a result, once they are released, they are 4 to 8 times more likely to violently reoffend. They are also characterized by their resistance to rehabilitation in contrast to other offenders. This means that they have high recidivism rates, and it is difficult to really treat them in a way that they will become less criminogenic in the future. So psychopathy is not its own disorder in the DSM. Instead, it is classified under antisocial personality disorder. However, there are differences between these disorders. Antisocial personality disorder is more characterized by antisocial traits, such as criminal versatility and early behavioral problems. And it's more of these factor to social deviance. But psychopathy also has factor 1, interpersonal and affective traits. So this includes the charm that I was talking about in the previous slide, a grandiose sense of self-worth, their manipulativeness, lack of remorse or guilt, shallow affect, and lack of empathy. They tend to not accept responsibility for their actions, and this leads to irresponsibility. And there's also that impulsivity that continues the cycle. Psychopathy has strong biological bases. Twin studies have shown that psychopathy is heritable, and there are no apparent differences in the family backgrounds of psychopaths versus non-psychopaths. Childhood trauma is not necessarily predictive of psychopathy. However, it can lead to more traits that become aggressive in the future. And in contrast, a pro-social environment and an environment with reinforcement of good behaviors can lead to the less expression of psychopathic traits and less aggression in general. There are symptoms from an early age, and this is usually characterized in the childhood disorder, which is called conduct disorder. And conduct disorder basically has many of the same traits as psychopathy and antisocial personality disorder. Those same characteristics that you see in those adults, you see in these kids from an early age. And usually you can sometimes see this in the mistreatment of animals. If they're abusing animals, that's a very indicative sign of possible psychopathy in the future. And these brain abnormalities begin early in childhood. So we can see that there's strong biological roots in psychopathy. The brains of psychopaths are very different from the brains of regular functioning humans. So there's dysfunctional amygdala, which is what you mostly find when you're talking about the brains of psychopaths. This means that they have reduced experiences and recognition of fear in others. And this can lead to a lack of empathy when people are upset or they're fearful. They can recognize maybe that they're fearful or upset, but maybe they don't understand the feeling. And there's also that defective ventromedial prefrontal cortex that impairs the emotional understanding of these emotions in others. And an intact dorsomedial prefrontal cortex, they are able to cognitively understand. They understand rationally what is going on. They may understand rationally the expression of fear, the expression of emotion, but they don't feel it. They don't necessarily have that emotional understanding. They have an overactive nucleus accumbens, which is basically the reward center of the brain. So they have extreme impulsivity, which is mentioned in one of the symptoms, and decreased inhibition is seen throughout the brain. So this also leads to more impulsive behaviors. So there are some experiments that I would like to talk about because they really underlie what we see in a psychopathic brain and whether it is able to change. So in an experiment where participants were tasked with remembering negatively charged words and neutral words, when they were remembering negatively charged words, prisoner psychopaths had reduced activity in paralimbic regions, such as the amygdala and the posterior cingulate, and increased activity in the lateral frontal cortex associated with cognition. So this shows that they were basically processing memories in a way that was not related to the emotions of the words, but more related to their understanding cognitively of those words. In another experiment, they watched videos of one person harming another, and mirror neurons, which are basically the empathic system, they're shown to be related to how we process empathy in others and how we basically mimic other people's feelings and mirror them, essentially, and feel what other people are feeling. So mirror neurons responded normally only when psychopaths were asked to empathize. So when they weren't asked to empathize, they were underreactive. There was not this regular mirror neuron system going on. But when they were asked to empathize explicitly, when they actually tried to empathize, they were able to turn it on, and it was able to be normal mirror neuron system regulation. And psychopaths may be able to switch empathy on and off at will if that is the case. If their mirror neurons are responding normally when they're asked to empathize, it's possible that it's like an on and off switch for them in many ways. So this all ties back to the thinking versus feeling. And it's been said that psychopaths are completely rational, but morally insane. For moral responses, psychopaths recruit frontal areas to mimic dysfunctional paralimbic areas. So they basically use cognition to understand what other people are saying and understand the cognitive aspect, but not the emotional aspect. Therefore, they think about what is right and wrong rather than feeling it like we often do. And it's been said by many neuroscientists and those who have studied psychopathy that they know morality's words, but not its music. So this leads to the question, can psychopaths learn to empathize normally? Can we change the brain of psychopaths so that they aren't violent, so that they don't have these criminogenic tendencies? And traditional therapy and treatment says no, that it's not effective, and it's sometimes even counterproductive to reducing recidivism and reducing violence. However, this has led to an all or none kind of philosophy where people are saying that this means that there is no treatment for psychopathy out there. Psychopaths are just terrible people. They're stuck with their brains, and we can't really do anything about it. However, this may not actually be the case. There's been decompression treatment, in adolescence, which is basically long-term intensive rebuilding of social connections. And this has shown to reduce violence offenses and recidivism, and it's been shown to really improve the results for psychopathic offenders at a young age. This is, keep in mind, this is only juveniles that it's been tested on, and children are definitely more, they have more plastic brains, they're more adaptable to change. But that does show promising implications for adults, that it is possible to change these tendencies, or at least change the outcomes. And behavioral conditioning has also been shown to really help adolescents in becoming less psychopathic in their symptoms and having reduced aggression. So incentivizing pro-social behavior. Another treatment that's been brought up as a potential way to help psychopaths and to change the brain and to change the way they perceive others and feel compassion. Can we teach compassion? Is TMS would stimulate areas of the brain responsible for moral reasoning. And eventually, hopefully, that could result in some long-term changes. However, this has not really been tested fully. And so that is all I have for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I would definitely love to answer them. Thanks for listening.